Part of the IOM radio network.
IPMNation.com.
Tonight on Unleashed, Ted Cruz confusion over his immigration stance continues. And we learned today that apparently civil asset forfeiture does not include seizing a rare Wu-Tang album. Who knew? And, of course, I make time for one of my favorite things ever to do on the show. Yes, tonight I will once again make fun of Pat Robertson. It is Thursday, December 17th, 2015, just after 11 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone. Matt Connarton Unleashed starts right now. Hello, everybody. Welcome, Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live on this Thursday evening, coming to you from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in glorious Manchester, New Hampshire. By the way, I got to see yesterday John Heichel, the owner and proprietor of Uptown Auto Repair, and he was on a show, another political show that I'm involved in called Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, and we had him on the show to with Gary and I to talk about the what's going on in the Middle East, because John really understands that pretty well. So we have but I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of change things around at the last minute, because I think our guest is ready now. Okay, we're actually going to be bringing on a guest. Do you know how long? Couple segments or? Okay, and it's Dave. I think Will Coley. Okay. Will Coley from Muslims for Liberty, and let's get him on Skype, and we'll chat with him for a bit, and we'll explain why. Let's see here. Is that him? I just want to make sure I got the right person here. Sorry, everybody. We kind of had a breakdown in communication here at the last minute, so trying to figure... Trying to figure this out. We'll get Will on here. Okay, and it's not coming up when I put in that... Let me try this one more time. Sorry, folks. Bear with me. Okay, that Skype name is not coming up when I try to add him to the call. So, Jen, maybe you can verify that that's the correct Skype name, because I'm not seeing that. And okay, well, just now. Okay, hang on. Oh, there we go. All right, we found him. And let's see if he's there. Will, are you there? Oh, hang on. There. Someone.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, there we go. Hi, Will. Nice to meet you. I'm Matt. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us. How are you?
Absolutely good. So we should explain. You are doing a show called Muslims for Liberty starting in January, and we're going to be carrying that on IPM Nation, as well as I know it's going to be on LRN. So this is the first time you and I have spoken outside of Facebook. Can you tell us what that's about, Muslims for Liberty?
Muslims for Liberty is an organization that we started almost 6 years ago. I had started working with some conservative groups in Florida, done some time working on a fairly popular local radio show in Orlando. And what we were having was we had like libertarian and conservative candidates that were coming to us making statements that were positive toward Muslims. This was during the 2010 election cycle. And what we were finding was that basically the major national Muslim organizations, if a person on the left acknowledges that Muslims exist, then they send out 7 emails and 5 tweets and 15 Facebook posts telling every Muslim in the U.S. to like fall on their faces and thank these people. But when the same thing was coming from libertarian people and from conservatives, that was being file 13'd because I was sending them information, calling them about these things, and basically they were, giving me the finger. And so what we decided was, since the major national Muslim organizations refused to be unbiased as far as political partisanship is concerned, that we would create a space for Muslims who do the kind of work that we do in the circles that we do to kind of compare notes and work to
Will, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. It actually froze on this end for a moment. I'm not sure why. I'm hearing you, but I'm hearing you much lower than before. Go ahead and talk a little.
How am I doing now?
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you. I'm not sure what happened. Skype is quirky and glitchy, so
Sometimes, yeah.
I apologize. That doesn't usually happen, but once in a while I run into that. But it just kind of froze up for a moment. So, just go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. It's okay. Technical things happen. I'm sure I have my own glitches from time to time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just decided, that we needed to create a space that would give a platform to people who weren't from the left, who wanted to express support for the Muslim community in a public fashion, to give them a platform to have that voice, as well as a space for other Muslims who work in libertarian and conservative circles to find people of like mind, to find people where they can compare notes, they can, consolidate effort toward, goals, those sorts of things. And it just kind of evolved from that. It just started out as it was just me trying to find other people who were interested. And then I met Davi. He contacted us because he wanted to do an article, and we found out that we were such philosophical kinfolk that he started, basically took the second hand position, so to speak, at the organization. And we met a couple more guys, and then a couple more, and then a couple more, and then people from the UK decided they wanted to get in. In the course of a few years, we put together a network that spans, I want to say, a dozen countries at least, and most of the continental United States.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
And how did the radio show come about? What made you decide? I mean, I do hear you call into Free Talk Live quite a bit, which is great because you definitely provide a lot of valuable information and insight. But what made you want to take that step into doing your own show?
Well, Ian and Mark actually contacted me about it. The guy that has the slot that I'm moving into was retiring. And, they saw the response to some of our interviews that we've done, how well they performed, not just while we were on air, but, the metrics that they measure performance online afterward. It's like one of their most watched, most shared, most commented on kind of thing. So they saw that there was a market for it and decided, rather than me calling Free Talk Live every so often, and then, getting stuck on the air for an hour and 45 minutes. Why not just give me my own hour and 45 minutes so that we can take care of this, on our own time, that we can literally, it'll be a show that's kind of devoted to answering these questions, as well as kind of introducing the libertarian community to the Muslim academic community and the Muslim grassroots activism community, so that, if we've got a guy who's, come up with this new idea and he's found an awesome way to fund it, well, then we're going to have that guy on, and now he's going to be able to share his experience with our listeners, and now they can try to implement his, way of getting funding for their next project.
Sure. And the show, is it going to be 2 hours or an hour? Yeah. I forget.
2 hours.
2 hours.
We're kind of batting around right now between Radical Salam and Call to Freedom as far as what the name is. There's a little, we want the show to be something that AM radio stations are willing to pick up in syndication. So we're kind of worried that Arabic in the name will be a very big discouraging factor for them. So we're hoping that kind of a double entendre, call to freedom, call to prayer, that kind of thing, might be better. So we're kind of conflicted on that, but we'll definitely, have to figure that out the next couple of days. So, because we're about to start running commercial promo spots and stuff on LRN in the next few days.
Absolutely. Well, we're up against a hard break. Would you be able, can you stick with us for another segment?
Sure. Whatever it takes, guys.
That'd be great. I'd love to talk to you some more. So, all right, we will, everybody stick with us. We're talking with Will Coley from Muslims for Liberty tonight here on Matt Connarton Unleashed. And don't go away. We'll be right back, everybody.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
No, the name is Joe. The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go.
Yeah!
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live tonight on IPM Nation 1, and of course the new OTR FM, or new-ish at this point. And we're talking tonight with Will Coley from Muslims for Liberty, and he's got a brand new show that's going to be coming up not only on LRN.FM, but we're going to be carrying it on IPM Nation as well, and we're very honored to have that opportunity. And Will's sticking around with us for another segment. And Will, let me ask you, I mean, this is probably an obvious question, but I know that, and I'm sure you get this a lot, but can you talk to us about just misconceptions people have about Muslims, which I know is particularly relevant in this current era where we have, the front runner for the Republican Party, for example, saying, ban all Muslims from entering the country and, all that kind of stuff that probably drives you nuts. I mean, it drives me nuts, and, I'm not even a Muslim, but can you talk to us a little bit about that, about misconceptions and all
Well, I guess that would really kind of like that's a really, really big book. Orientalism is a 900-year-old science at this point. So, you have, lots of different things that are discussed about Muslims that aren't particularly true, or, may have a grain of truth, but that is, then spread to be much larger than it actually is. So I guess it would kind of be like I would need some more specifics as far as like which particular misconception are you questioning about? Like, what do you think is a big one in your mind that you yourself may not even know the answer to?
Well, I mean, I don't know a lot about Islam to begin with, to be honest with you. I do know that, of course, the obvious misconception people have, and I understand this not to be true, but a lot of people assume that all Muslims are essentially violent, and because they think that the Quran says that, to be a good Muslim, you have to kill the infidels and all this. Of course, my perception is with any religion, you can apply, whether it be Islam or Christianity or whatever, you can apply a certain fundamentalist, extremist,
That's a word that I really hate using, fundamentalist, it's particularly in the modern context, because in my personal opinion, it's a bit Orwellian in the way that it's used, because Jesus wasn't a douchebag, but the people who are referred to as quote unquote fundamentalist Christians are complete and total douchebags. They're violent, they're angry, they're hateful, but they're referred to as fundamentalists. And I always thought that the term fundamental meant it was like the central part of a faith, like returning to like the central points of a faith. So right. For a fundamentalist Christian to be angry, violent, hate, like this is the opposite of what we should be calling a Christian fundamentalist, because they're ignoring the fundamentals of Christianity. And the same thing applies to what was referred to as fundamentalist Islam, because fundamentals of Islam, particularly in military context, is that you don't target civilians. If you're in a military situation where you're being attacked by another state, you don't have the right to target the civilians of that state, even if that state targets the civilians of your own state. You're not allowed to fight anyone who's a non-combatant. So anyone who carries out violence against non-combatants would be ignoring a fundamental of Islam. So to call them a fundamentalist would kind of be like Orwellian. I mean, that's the only word I can think of. It's because it's like using terms to describe something that's the opposite of what it is.
Right. I get what you're saying. With the Christians that we were talking about, I use a term for them. I call them ironic Christians, because they call themselves Christians and go through some of the motions of Christianity while actively trying to have as little to do as possible with anything Christ tried to teach us. And as you said, Christ was not a douchebag.
Yeah. I mean, it's the easiest way to try to put it in a relatable sense is that, these people are vile, and it's almost as if they stand for everything that he personally stood against in his own life.
Right.
But they are referred to as those who follow the fundamentals of, they're called literalists. How can you be a literalist if you ignore what he literally said?
Right.
So it just doesn't make sense to me how words can be redefined. Yeah. And we've, particularly in the modern age, we've started using words that don't mean what they mean anymore.
Yeah.
We've redefined these terms, like racism. Racism no longer means, being prejudiced against a person because of their race. Now there's a whole new definition that doesn't even have anything to do with being prejudiced against people.
Yeah.
It just means if you're white, you're racist.
I've been told that actually by another talk show host, that just by nature of being white, I'm racist. Yeah, you see that a lot in politics too. Just words sort of being redefined or their meanings being sort of twisted to suit a political end, and it has kind of a psychological effect with people where, like I use an example with undocumented immigrants. A lot of people like to call them illegal aliens, which of course has sort of a dehumanizing effect psychologically with people. They begin to stop thinking of them as human
because and start seeing them as criminals.
Exactly. And alien, of course, the other. Ooh, that's scary. So there's a lot of that.
Language is important. Language is very important, and the way we use language is very important. One thing that I always encourage people to do is when you discuss violence in the Middle East, is to use proper terminology. Like groups like ISIS, they like terms like Islamist. They like terms like Islamic terrorism. Because it validates them. It gives what they're doing.
Uh-oh. We just lost audio from Will. Will, I don't know if you can hear me, but I can no longer hear you. Let's see. All right, I'm going to try to add Will back to the back into the conversation here. Will, can you hear me? Are you there? I think we lost Will. I noticed it was starting to sound a little staticky. Will, can you hear me at all? All right, I think we lost Will. I think it was a poor Skype connection with Will. I don't know if that's on our end or on his end, but I've tried to re-add him and can't. Okay. Well, sorry about that, everybody. That was that was an interesting discussion that got interrupted. Maybe we'll try to get Will back tomorrow night. Maybe we'll get him by phone instead of Skype, and it'll be a little easier because for some reason I cannot get Will back. All right. Well, I apologize. Damn, that was really interesting. It sucks when it sucks when you kind of. Oh, wait a minute. Something looks different here. Will, can you hear me at all? Nah, he can't hear, or he can hear me and I can't hear him. Who knows? Okay. All right, Will, I'll just remove him from the Skype call. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, it sucks when you lose a guest, but it sucks even more when it's someone who's really interesting. So we will endeavor to speak with him on another night. Like I said, maybe we'll try it by phone. Anyway, so we are going to be coming up to a break in a moment, but I think what I'm going to do is, we actually, and Will is, okay, he's trying to call us back. Let's see if I can add him. Will, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that, man. The whole thing just went down.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello.
Nope. That's not working.
Hold on. How about now?
It's not working. Okay. Well, we'll try to Skype back in, but it's we're not having any luck. Okay. We did talk just very briefly referred to the issue of illegal immigration and how words are used talking about undocumented immigrants. Using phrases like conservatives like to use phrases like illegal alien and whatnot. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio really got into it about that issue, on that issue at the debate the other night. And, it was very contentious, and I was a little bit confused in terms of what exactly they were arguing about, because apparently there's some confusion regarding Ted Cruz and his position on illegal immigration, which kind of surprised me. Marco Rubio at one point was part of that Gang of Eight that tried to actually do something constructive on the issue and fix this, but with Ted Cruz, you know, as a conservative, I assumed that he was just, you know, got to deport everybody and build a wall, and because that seems to be the standard position of conservatives. And apparently that was not always the case, and Ted Cruz at one point actually did support something resembling a compromise and was actually interested in doing something productive on this. But of course, now that Ted Cruz is running for president, see, just like Marco Rubio turned out to be a gutless coward, because as soon as it became politically untenable for him to, you know, stick to a pro-immigration reform position, because he woke up one day and said, wait a minute, I got to run for president. I can't be for immigration reform. They'll say that I'm for amnesty. You know, it appears that the same thing has happened to Ted Cruz. Because I had no idea that Ted Cruz at one point also supported a compromise. But now he's trying to spin it like, no, that's not what I meant. You know, and I'm not knocking him for ever supporting immigration reform, by the way. I support immigration reform. You know, I think something needs to be done. You're not going to deport 11 million people, nor do I personally think it's ethical or moral to do so for a variety of reasons. But so I would like to see this get fixed, and these people have an opportunity to get some sort of legal status. So we're up against a break. So when we come back, I'm going to play some audio for you of Ted Cruz seemingly in a state of confusion and befuddlement trying to explain his position to Bret Baier on Fox News. I'll play that for you when we come back. And don't forget, speaking of so-called fundamentalist Christians, still to come tonight, I will make fun, mercilessly, of Pat Robertson, as I so love to do. More Unleashed coming back. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting Radio Show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits, and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton, Unleashed. We're live on this Thursday evening from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire. And Jen and I were just talking during the break. She's going to get in touch with Will, and we'll get him on another night when hopefully we're we're able to not have technical problems. Skype is giving us trouble tonight. So, even when he was still on with us, the signal was, he was coming through kind of crackly. So something went wrong, but technology will fail us from time to time. So, but we will get him back on. Will and his organization, Muslims for Liberty, are going to be doing a show beginning in January, which we will be carrying here on IPM Nation 1, and very proud and honored to be able to do that. I misunderstood. I thought the show, I didn't realize I hadn't settled on a title yet. I thought the show was going to be called Muslims for Liberty, just like their organization, but apparently they're looking for to do a different title for the show itself. So we'll keep you posted on all that. But so that'll be coming to IPM Nation Sunday nights in January, right after Free Talk Live. So that will be wonderful. Before the break, I was talking about Ted Cruz. I'm going to play this audio for you now. This is Ted Cruz talking with Brett Baer on Fox, trying to defend himself and his previous foray back in 2013 into the C word, compromise. And I support. Well, I had no idea that this happened, but I support what Ted Cruz was trying to do back in 2013. But listen to him now trying to spin it as no, that's not what I meant. This is some pretty disingenuous douchebaggery right here from Senator Cruz. Take a listen.
One of the big back and forth moments between you and Senator Marco Rubio was on immigration. Many people said you scored some points against Marco Rubio there. You also said, though, and it has been checked today at the debate, that you denied that you've ever supported legal status for undocumented immigrants. You said, quote, "I've never supported legalization. I do not intend to support it." But back in 2013, you did support an amendment. And back when you were making the case, this is what you said.
I don't want immigration reform to fail. I want immigration reform to pass. And so I would urge people of good faith on both sides of the aisle, if the objective is to pass common sense immigration reform that secures the borders, that improves legal immigration, and that allows those who are here illegally to come in out of the shadows, then we should look for areas of bipartisan agreement and compromise to come together.
Now, that amendment would have allowed undocumented immigrants to remain in the U.S. permanently and obtain legal status. So how do you square that circle?
Actually, Brett, it wouldn't have. What was happening there is that was the battle over the Gang of Eight, the Rubio-Schumer amnesty bill, which was a massive amnesty bill proposed by Senator Rubio, by Chuck Schumer, and Barack Obama. And I was leading the fight against amnesty. I was standing shoulder to shoulder with Jeff Sessions. I was standing shoulder to shoulder with Steve King, leading the fight to secure the borders. And what I did, that particular amendment, was an amendment I introduced to remove citizenship, to say those who are here illegally shall be permanently ineligible for citizenship. Now, the fact that I introduced an amendment to remove part of the Gang of Eight bill doesn't mean I support the rest of the Gang of Eight bill. The Gang of Eight bill was a mess. It was a terrible bill.
Well, wait a second,
and what
Senator.
the Rubio campaign is trying to claim is, well, gosh.
That is not what you said at the time. And Yahoo dug up these quotes from back then. You said, if this amendment were to pass, the chances of this bill passing into law would increase dramatically. A few weeks later, during a debate on the Senate floor, Cruz repeated his belief that this amendment is the compromise that can pass. And you repeated later in Princeton that if my amendment were adopted, this bill would pass. It sounded like you wanted the bill to pass.
Of course I wanted the bill to pass, my amendment to pass. What my amendment did is take citizenship off the table, but it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that I supported the other aspects of the bill, which was a terrible. And Brett, you've been around Washington long enough. You know how to defeat bad legislation, which is what that amendment did, is it revealed the hypocrisy of Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats and the establishment Republicans who were supporting them, because they all voted against it. And listen, I'll give you the simplest proof why this notion that my fighting amnesty somehow made me a supporter of amnesty. Jeff Sessions voted with me on my amendment to eliminate citizenship. Now, is anyone remotely suggesting that Jeff Sessions supports amnesty? Of course not. Of course not. We were fighting side by side to defeat Marco Rubio's amnesty, and we succeeded. We defeated it.
The problem, though, is that at the time, you were telling people like Byron York with the Washington Examiner that this was not a poison pill. You told them my objective was not to kill immigration reform. You said you wanted it to pass at the time. So my question to you is, looking back at what you said then and what you're saying now, which one should people believe?
What the amendments I introduced, and I introduced 5 amendments, a whole series of amendments. What they did is they illustrated the hypocrisy of the Democrats. They showed that it was a partisan effort, and they succeeded in defeating the Rubio-Schumer amnesty bill.
Okay, so that's it. Listen to him just tying himself in knots, trying to run away from what he did. And by the way, again, I have no problem with what he did. I have no problem with, like I said, I supported the Gang of 8 compromise that Marco Rubio was involved in, and I have no problem with the amendment that Ted Cruz tried to introduce into that. I think that was fine. But now, of course, he's got a nomination to try to win, so now he has to come off like he didn't really mean it, like it was just. And here's the thing: so if he didn't really mean it, and it was just a poison pill to try to kill that bill and keep it from passing, well, that's not good either. Is this really what you want your representatives in Washington doing? Is just playing games and just this kind of manipulation? That's pretty sucky. So and good by the way for Brett Baer of Fox News. And it's rare that I compliment anyone on Fox News, but once in a while someone will commit an actual act of journalism, as Brett Baer did there, by really kind of not letting Ted Cruz just get away with that, and challenging him on what he was saying. And clearly some research had been done on this, and so good for Brett Baer. I mean, he did a really good job there. And by the way, too, so I was listening to I had NPR on in the Jeep earlier, and I happened to hear that I think I kind of knew this in the back of my mind, but I had forgotten about it. So, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, of course, they're the ones who had the big fight during the debate over immigration. And they're both, Cuban Americans and whatnot. Well, they have something else in common. They're both 44 years old. And the reason that kind of just struck me as weird is that, and again, I think I knew Ted Cruz. I think I kind of knew his age in the back of my mind, and I knew Marco Rubio was in his early to mid 40s, but it's just weird to me that they're the same age because, and again, maybe it's just me, but it just seems like Ted Cruz is way older. Maybe it's because he just, I don't know, the way he carries himself or the way he behaves, his personality or whatever, he comes off like just kind of a stodgy old man. So it was just weird for me to think about it. Wait, they're both 44. They're the same age? Ted Cruz just seems so much older than Marco Rubio to me. I mean, not like he doesn't seem like he could be Marco Rubio's dad, but maybe his uncle or an older cousin or something. But it's like, wow, they're the same age. That's so weird. And Ted Cruz just seems like, he seems more like 54 than 44. You know what I mean? And it's not like he looks like, if you look at him, it's not that he looks older necessarily. He just seems older. He just has the vibe of an older person. So really quick, before we hit the next break, this guy, and actually it was mentioned in the news at the top of the show before the show started. The Turing Pharmaceutical CEO, Martin, how do you say this? That's a weird combination of consonants at the beginning of his name. S-H-K, Shkreli. I guess it's, that's hard to say. Shkreli? Martin Shkreli. He's the guy who he raised the price of an HIV drug that his company makes like 5,000% and took all kinds of shit for it. Well, he also recently he purchased for $2 million the only copy of a Wu-Tang album. And now he's in trouble with the FBI for fraud. And but apparently, and of course they do civil asset forfeiture, but for whatever reason, they didn't seize the Wu-Tang album. It says here, and this is from Politico, FBI doesn't take pharma exec's Wu-Tang album. Let me read this really quickly because we're going to hit a break. The bad boy exec who miffed music fans by shelling out $2 million for the only copy of a Wu-Tang Clan album and then not listening to it hasn't had to fork it over to the feds yet. CEO Martin Shkreli was arrested Thursday over charges of securities fraud, leading many to speculate that maybe law enforcement had seized the album called Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, but the FBI took to Twitter to dispel the rumors. There's more to this if you want to read the whole thing. It's on Politico, but it's kind of funny because last Friday on the show when Slicko was on with me, Slicko, host of Slicko's World, we were talking about this very thing, actually. This guy buying the Wu-Tang album and then not listening to it. Slicko was speculating, for all he knows, he bought a blank CD. He doesn't know what's in it. That case could be empty if it's never been opened, which would be kind of funny. Would serve him right, I guess. The scumbag. But but a lot of people buy people buy vinyl and never open it. They just buy it to collect it. So I don't know, but apparently the feds, for whatever reason, this $2 million thing, they didn't seize that. Personally, I disagree with civil asset forfeiture. The government just taking property and assets without due process. I think it's wrong. But on the other hand, this guy's kind of a scumbag, so it's hard to be too upset. I kind of do hope they go back and grab his $2 million Wu-Tang CD. Part of me wouldn't mind that, It's kind of like when I remember I had a friend once who told me that she had shoplifted something, and it was like, oh, wow. And then she was like, yeah, I stole something from Walmart. And I was like, oh, you stole it from Walmart? I can't be that upset. You know what I mean? Everything's proportional in life. Everything's relative. I don't know. It's hard to get upset with somebody for stealing from Walmart. But if she had stolen from a mom and pop store, I would have been like, ooh, that's scummy. I'm not advocating stealing from Walmart, by the way, just to be clear. I'm just saying, these things are complicated. All right, more Unleashed. We'll be right back.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Matt Connarton Unleashed. 5 nights a week on IPM Nation 1, and of course, every Tuesday and Thursday night on OTR FM as well. This week's television edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed is up. You can find it on our YouTube page, on IPMNation.com, and Vimeo as well. And this week I did some debate analysis. Actually, that's what I spent the entire show on, debate analysis for the Republican debate on Tuesday night. So you can watch that. That is available. Also, too, I was talking about at the top of the show, but then there was the scrambling with trying to get our guest on, Will Coley. This week's Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, the show that I do with the Honorable Gary S. Hopper, we were talking with John Heichel about what's going on in the Middle East and, the difference between, because it's confusing. John is very well versed in, the differences between, the Shia and the Sunni and what's the difference between ISIS and ISIL and the distinctions there. And he really knows his stuff with that. So Gary and I were very excited to have him on and talk about that. So, so you can check that out too. Actually, right now, that's on the homepage at IPMNation.com. But you can find that on our YouTube channel. And, as promised, Pat Robertson, he likes to say a lot of weird stuff. I enjoy picking on him. Rightwingwatch.org, which is a great website to find this kind of ridiculous material, is they've got this up. It says, according to Pat Robertson, the Pilgrims were behind the original War on Christmas. Did you know about the War on Christmas, by the way? Yes, there is a war on Christmas. All these secularists and atheists who hate Christmas, which, of course, is ridiculous, and it's not true. I mean, even atheists celebrate Christmas. There's really, I've always kind of thought of it as there's really two Christmases. There's two versions of Christmas that run parallel. There's the, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer in Christ, there's the celebration of the birth of Christ. And, of course, there's also the annual celebration of consumerism and materialism known as, Christmas, where people give gifts and what. I know I sound cynical when I discuss that, but actually that consumerism and materialism is probably pretty necessary for our economy to function. If you think about it, if we didn't have Christmas, I wonder how much our economy would suffer from not having that. So certainly retailers depend on it, and you can buy stuff actually online through IPM Nation too, IPMNation.com. Check out our eBay and our Amazon stores and whatnot. But yes, some people feel that as celebrators of Christmas, they are being persecuted, and there is this war on Christmas, which I think has been going on for at least a decade now that I've been hearing that phrase. But let's hear what Pat Robertson has to say about it. I'll read this quickly. While religious right activists like Pat Robertson regularly rail against the terrible oppression Christians in America suffer due to the liberals' supposed war on Christmas, his very own show, The 700 Club, reminded us today who led the original war on Christmas in America: the Pilgrims. Reporter Paul Strand reported today on how the Pilgrims were, quote, some of history's most fervent opponents of Christmas, unquote. In her Pathos blog yesterday, Beth Allison Barr reminded us how the war on Christmas went down in England. And she wrote this. Here's the story in brief, as related by Diane Purkis in the English Civil War. While Charles was the first, was fighting during the 1640s for his crown, which he would lose along with his life in 1649, an increasingly radical parliament governed England. In the words of Purkis, quote, that trans-historical killjoy, a parliamentary subcommittee, unquote, was created in 1643 to reform the Church of England. It regarded the liturgical calendar of medieval Christianity as both a symbol of Catholicism and a distraction from the gospel. Sunday was the only holy day worth honoring. All other festivals, including Christmas, should be canceled. Of course, this was easier said than done. Christmas was a beloved holiday, revered in Tudor England. Asking people to give up, asking people to give up Christmas, not to mention their days off work, proved nigh impossible. Many people simply ignored the parliamentary decree of the Solemn League and Covenant Subcommittee in 1643 and refused to go to work on Christmas Day. Parliament cracked down in 1644 with an ordinance enforcing the Sunday fast day instead of the usual Christmas feast. In 1645, Parliament again declared Sunday and occasional celebrations as the only recognized holidays. Finally, in 1647, Parliament issued an ordinance officially canceling all Christmas and Lenten celebrations, even arresting clergy preaching Christmas Day sermons. Now, this is a legit war on Christmas going on back then. Despite initial resistance, the war on Christmas almost succeeded. Purkis argued that the death of Oliver Cromwell in 1658 is what really saved Christmas. Although the ordinances were never fully realized, mobs forced Christmas celebrations in some areas, and even though the popularity of Edward Fisher's 1649 defense of Christmas, which sold 6,000 copies, suggests continued support for the holiday season, Purkis argues that most people were beginning to conform sulkily by the 1650s. As Purkis writes, quote, "If the Republic had lasted 10 years longer, the old festive calendar would have been dead beyond recall," unquote. My goodness. So apparently there's some historical context for the war on Christmas. So Pat Robertson, not necessarily completely wrong. But I mean, I have to wonder. I mean, you certainly can't say that the liberal secularist conspiracy against Christmas goes back, predates our own country, right? I mean, I don't know. I figured it was only around as long as maybe since, the 1960s. Really quick, because this is something that they talk about a lot on Free Talk Live. And I think this is really good news. A Keene cop blocker found not guilty of resisting. Jury deadlocked on disorderly 6-6 mistrial declared. There is something called, I won't necessarily read the whole article. We'll see if we have time, but there is something called jury nullification. It's something that we've actually talked about a lot on Free Talk Live. I mean, they talk about a lot on Free Talk Live. We talk about a lot on, or have in the past, on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, the show that I mentioned a few minutes ago. But we've never really discussed it on this show, but basically, as I understand it, it's something that juries can do that they're not told. They're not instructed by the judge that they have this power, but they do, and they should know, they should be told, informed that they have this power, and that is to, if they don't believe that someone has done anything wrong, even if they may be guilty of a so-called alleged crime on a technical level, the jury can nullify the case and say, we don't think that any harm has been done here, even if the person is technically guilty. And what I mean is, as an example, so say someone is arrested and tried for marijuana possession. Well, maybe the prosecution can prove, or perhaps the defendant will even admit that they possessed this marijuana. But the jury, if they so choose, can say, well, whether this person is guilty or not, technically, we want to exercise our power to nullify this case because we don't see the problem here and don't think that this person has done any harm. So juries have the power to do that legally, but they're not told. And what this particular individual was doing was actually standing outside of a courtroom, as I understand it, and handing out pamphlets about jury nullification, so that the people going into court to serve on this jury would be made aware of their right to do this. And of course, he was arrested, and one of the things, it's interesting when they arrest someone for resisting arrest. And of course, disorderly conduct, which is sort of the catch-all for the police. If they don't know what else to charge you with, they'll charge you with disorderly conduct. I mean, they couldn't really get him on jury tampering because, just handing someone a pamphlet, giving them information that they should be given anyway. How is that tampering? This article, I'll read this very quickly. It's on copblock.org, written by Ian Freeman from Free Talk Live. In a clear victory today, Free State Project early mover James Cleveland was found not guilty of resisting arrest, and 6 of 12 jurors voted not guilty on the disorderly conduct charge. Judge John C. Kissinger spoke with the attorneys after the verdict and relayed that the jurors were locked 6-6 on the disorderly charge for all 5 hours of their deliberation. As a result, a mistrial was declared on the disorderly charge, meaning it may go to retrial. Earlier this year, in a bench trial for the same charges, Keene District Court Judge Edward J. Burke found James guilty on both counts. As is his right, James appealed the 2 Class A misdemeanor charges to a jury trial, even though the sentence from Burke was suspended on condition of good behavior. Ultimately, James said he was glad he went to jury trial, as he's now been vindicated completely on the resisting charge, where State Police Officer Philip Gazer lied, claiming James lunged at him and also stepped back 3 to 4 steps when he tried to cuff him, a claim that was proven false by the video and audio evidence in the case. If you want to read the rest of this, it is up at copblock.org. I would encourage you to take a look at it. I mean, this could have larger ramifications, and I hope that it does. And juries should know that they do have the power to say, you know what, this law is stupid, and even if this individual really did break the law, so what? We're not interested in putting this person in jail for a victimless so-called crime. Juries should be told this, quite frankly. And and who could argue that, our prisons are overcrowded, and, because of the war on drugs, and we lock people up for other things that, just no victim crimes like prostitution and things like that. And I would like to see that change. And I think a lot of people with just common sense would also like to see that change. So we're out of time. We'll be back tomorrow night on IPM Nation 1, the Friday night edition of the show. Don't forget, you can also find us every Tuesday and Thursday night here on OTR FM. Friday nights are more laid back, strictly on IPM Nation, so I hope you'll join me then. We'll talk